This chapter will cover the senses, both general and special senses. We're first going to begin with general senses, and then we'll go over the special senses. A sense is um, responsible for sending information about a stimulus to the brain. When our brain becomes consciously aware of that stimulus, the term for that is called sensation. And those stimuli are detected by sensory receptors, and we need to know how to classify them based on the stimulus that they respond to. General senses are going to be senses that respond to temperature, pain, touch, stretch, and also pressure. Special senses are going to be senses that respond to gustation, which is taste, olfaction, which is smell, vision, equilibrium or balance, and also hearing. So to classify receptors, we classify them first on how they are distributed throughout the skin and organs. So a general sense receptor is kind of like a modified dendrite, whereas a special sense receptor is going to be housed in a much more complex organ in the head. So the criteria used to describe receptors are the distribution of the receptor. So if it's found in the skin, if it's found in a deep organ, the origin for the stimulus that it is detecting, and the modality of the stimulus. So for example, whether it's temperature, chemical, whether it's pressure, or the amount of stretch that occurs in an organ, or whether it has to do with a special sense. So somatic sensory receptors are specific receptors that are found in the skin, mucous membranes lining the body cavities, joints, muscles, or tendons. And they monitor the variety of the stimuli, which include things like texture, pressure, temperature, pain, vibration, or stretch. Other examples are called visceral sensory receptors, and as their name indicates, they're going to be found in the walls of internal organs and blood vessels. So they detect stimuli like stretch, chemicals, temperature, or pain. And another group is the special sense receptors, which are more specialized, complex sense organs located in the head. And these are associated with smell, taste, vision, hearing, and equilibrium. We can also classify receptors based on where the stimulus origin is. If they're found outside of the body so that the stimuli are from the external environment, they're called exteroceptors, meaning external to the body. These would be receptors in the skin, body cavity linings, and special sense organs. If those receptors are inside the body, they're called interoceptors, and they detect stimuli in internal organs. So they can include things like stretch receptors in smooth muscle, receptors for pain, pressure, temperature, and chemical changes in viscera. Another group is called a proprioceptor, and these deal with body position. And these receptors are found in muscles, tendons, joints, and ligaments, and they will be constantly telling the brain position information about the position about whether a muscle is relaxed or whether it's contracted. Another way to classify these receptors is based on the modality of the stimulus, and this would be due to the stimulating agent. For example, a chemoreceptor is going to detect specific molecules that are dissolved in fluid. So, for example, there could be sensory receptors in blood vessels that monitor levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. A thermoreceptor is going to detect changes in temperature. So one of these receptors could sense slight changes in the skin, for example. A photoreceptor would be found in special senses, and in this case, it would detect changes in intensity, color, and the position of light. Mechanoreceptors would detect touch, pressure, vibration, and stretch. One example of these would be a baroreceptor, and there are baroreceptors in blood vessels as well. So there's a lot of varying descriptions for receptors. The modality of the stimulus, the location of the stimulus. In the case of a baroreceptor, they're found in places like the aortic arch, and they detect pressure changes within the body structure. Then finally, there's a nociceptor, which is a pain receptor. So it detects painful stimuli, both external or internal.